Hi, welcome to Audiobook Academy. This is a self-paced audiobook. There's no need to keep an eye on things. Just pay attention. Thank you for taking the time to listen. This is a book summary of The Body Keeps the Score. Brain, Mind, and Body in the Healing of Trauma. By Bessel van Kolk. The body, like many other things, eventually catches up to us. Is there a number of times in your life when you ignored what your body was trying to tell you, only to later realize that what it was telling you wasn't going away? Trauma must be dealt with in order to move forward. This is the focus of Body Keeps the Score. A new study by van Kolk reveals the true cost of stress and trauma on the body, and demonstrates how the body keeps tabs on our treatment of it. Numerous life-threatening diseases can be avoided if we have a better understanding of self-care and healing. Dr. Bessel van Kolk has written over 150 peer-reviewed articles and numerous books on trauma, and is a well-known psychiatrist. Additionally, he is the president of the Trauma Research Foundation and a highly regarded professor of psychiatry. In other words, if you're looking for someone who knows more about trauma than I do, look elsewhere. A clear message has been delivered to him over the course of 30 years by his clients, who include veterans, survivors of trauma from childhood and adolescence, as well as those who have been sexually abused. Even though we may believe that trauma is a thing of the past, our bodies are actually able to remember what our minds are trying to suppress. There is no regard for a normal timetable of past, present, and future when it comes to trauma. Trauma-induced hypervigilance is not a cure, but rather a means of coping with a constant state of fear and apprehension. There is no way out of the danger, and it is unavoidable and overwhelming. Even for those who have been traumatized, this can have devastating consequences. To put it another way, the body keeps track of everything. This summary will help us better understand how to cope with trauma in the future. It's essential to investigate trauma and stress because they are the norms rather than the exceptions. This book provides insights into the lives of his clients and explains how trauma changes our ability to think and control our bodies in a way that is difficult to comprehend. New neuroscientific research aims to change our understanding of trauma and the way we treat it. The most important thing this book does is give us hope. Hope in the form of treatments that can assist patients in re-establishing a sense of normalcy in their relationships with others and with their own selves. Traumatic is a word meaning. People use the terms trauma and traumatic very loosely. A wide range of causes and symptoms can be described using these terms. A person doesn't even have to be the victim of trauma in order to develop post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, which is also known as PTSD. As a result, this does not imply that everyone who experiences trauma will develop post-traumatic stress disorder. When doctors realized how difficult it was for veterans to adjust to normal life following the Vietnam War, they began to focus on PTSD treatment. As a result, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, DSM, a widely used tool among psychiatrists and psychologists around the world, now lists post-traumatic stress disorder as a diagnosis. There are a variety of symptoms that can occur as a result of an actual or threatened injury or assault, which are described here. The first thing to note is that the traumatizing event is one that we frequently replay in our minds. Physical discomfort, as well as strong negative emotions or thoughts, are common side effects. We may experience a sense of disconnection from the rest of the world. After that, we tend to stay away from things that trigger unpleasant memories. While the DSM gives us a sense of how trauma manifests, it does not explain why. A good example of this is Tom, a client who, despite the passage of 10 years, was still dealing with the effects of his service in the Vietnam War. When Tom refused to take his sleep medication, he eventually admitted that he needed to hold on to his traumatic experiences in order to be a living memorial to his fallen colleagues. To get better, you'd have to let them down. He was irresponsible, booze-dependent, and estranged from his family. Because of his unwillingness and inability to escape the consequences of his actions during combat, he was in a vicious cycle. It is clear from Tom's difficulties that trauma can be both complex and debilitating. Trauma has been difficult to treat because of a lack of comprehensive knowledge about it. So, how can we improve our ability to deal with trauma? Trauma's long-term effects. After a traumatic event, the brain doesn't return to normal, and this disconnects us from ourselves and others. Traumatic brain injury can be visualized using brain imaging techniques. Our bodies and minds are overwhelmed by trauma. It is common for those who have been traumatized to find sensory stimuli such as sounds or smells distressing. When the threat system in our brains detects this, our bodies release stress hormones and other neurochemicals to combat it. As a result, we can feel helpless, disconnected, and immobilized, which can lead to depression. Traumatic experiences have a direct impact on the brain's limbic system and prefrontal cortex, Two areas that are particularly vulnerable. After a traumatic event, the brain's language and logic centers go dark. We are therefore unable to provide an account of what took place. We can't even rationally explain the trauma. As a result, the mind and body are unable to release these sensations and emotions. In addition, our ability to recall information is harmed. We can remember everything that has happened to us in chronological order because of the power of memory. There is a difference in the way we remember trauma. We have flashbacks to traumatic events because our memories of them are fragmented. It's as if we're experiencing the trauma right now, thanks to these vivid sensory impressions of it. To keep our bodies and minds on high alert, the part of the brain that detects threats is activated, making us believe that no one can be trusted. Neurological reactions following trauma make us feel unsafe at all times. Addictions such as alcohol and other depressants may be used to dull the pain. However, none of this alleviates the pain we've already endured. The body continues to release a flood of stress hormones as a result of the emotional and physical experiences being held hostage. Anxiety, fear, and helplessness take over our daily lives, causing us to spiral into a state of paralysis. Experiencing such intense physical reactions as a result of our strong emotions makes us feel isolated. As a result, relationships suffer. Connecting with others is impossible if we cannot connect with ourselves. Trauma can have a long-lasting effect on children because they are more vulnerable. It's crucial to remember that children are more vulnerable than adults to the long-term consequences of trauma. Because children are more vulnerable, trauma inflicted on them is distinct from trauma inflicted on adults. Until now, they haven't had the opportunity to develop a healthy understanding of their place in the world and how to interact with other people. It is crucial for a child's healthy growth and development that parents can meet the needs of their children, especially in the early years of life. This is referred to as healthy attachment by psychologists. Taking a closer look at this, let's take a look at the attachment spectrum. Disorganized attachment is on the other end of the spectrum from secure attachment. When a parent's responses are in tune with their child's needs, they have a healthy secure attachment. Neglect or physical abuse can lead to disorganized attachment. Disorganized attachment has a terrible conundrum: a child is constantly in danger, with feelings of dependency and distrust toward their parents. Chronic trauma causes children to become so anxious that they become disconnected from their bodies and emotionally paralyzed. It's ironic that these kids appear serene on the outside, but they're completely frazzled on the inside. This may have long-term ramifications for you. When it comes to mental, emotional and physical health, childhood trauma has long been associated with an increased risk. So, how can we free ourselves from the effects of trauma? Trauma-related problems and solutions. There are a number of interventions that have been proven to be effective in the treatment of trauma. At the same time, we must acknowledge that there is no one treatment or therapy that can fix trauma. Instead, we must deal with its physical, psychological, and social roots. Traditional talk therapies and medication may be included in a treatment plan. However, it is essential to incorporate therapies that work with the body, as the body must learn to manage its response to overwhelming stimuli. It is beneficial to receive treatment that integrates the physical and mental selves and does so in a group setting with other patients. The author believes that effective therapies can help us break free from the tether that trauma has on our physical bodies. There is a disconnect between our rational minds and our bodies that needs to be bridged. It's also possible for people to regain a sense of security by learning to recognize and respond calmly to their body's messages. People frequently tell a sanitized version of their traumatic experiences. Trauma must be resolved so that we can once again find our place in the world. This necessitates a shift in our approach to psychotherapy. Especially if the trauma contains unspoken secrets, talk therapy can be beneficial. However, this type of therapy does not necessarily unlock the trauma that is stored in the body through this type of therapy. Unfortunately, the medication only masks the symptoms, rather than treating the underlying causes of trauma. So, how else can we deal with trauma treatment? Therapeutic methods that are less conventional and more promising. There are a number of other options that have proven to be very effective in the treatment of traumatized individuals. Emotional freedom techniques like EMDR are among the options here, eye movement desensitization, and reprocessing. Patients visually track a trained therapist's finger movements in EMDR, but no one can explain exactly how it works. This aids in the nonverbal resolution of the traumatizing memories. As an alternative, clients may benefit from sensory-motor psychotherapy, which makes the connection between bodily sensations and mental states in order to help them cope with past traumas. Neurofeedback, which uses machines to monitor brainwaves, can also be a useful modality. As they watch the activity of their brain on a computer screen, clients are able to better understand and manage their physical reactions to stressors. As a form of neurofeedback, heart rate variability, HRV, helps patients control their heart rate, which helps them relax. Research shows that mindfulness can improve emotional regulation, calm the emotional system, and strengthen the immune system. This is backed up by studies. Finally, it's beneficial to engage in activities that get you moving and in contact with other people. Because it helps people become more aware of their physical sensations, yoga is a good example. The benefits of music, dance, drumming, and other forms of visual and performing art are multiplied when these activities are done in a group setting. Creative expression can be achieved through the use of theater. Journaling can also aid in the rewriting of one's own narratives. Deep touch like regular body massages can also help free up trapped emotions. In the end, one of the most pressing issues in public health is trauma. In the United States, nearly 700,000 cases of child abuse are reported each year. According to the latest statistics, 1 out of every 4 women in the United States has experienced some form of violent physical abuse from a romantic partner. 60,000 war veterans who served in Iraq and Afghanistan tested positive for PTSD, according to an extensive study. It's important to remember that the body doesn't release trauma, which can lead to long-term health problems. Despite our best efforts, we are unable to escape the trauma and are forced to relive it in terrifying and fragmented ways. To better understand trauma and what can be done about it, Kolk sheds new light. Resolving trauma together with our bodies and minds gives us the confidence to live our lives to the fullest. Thank you for listening in Audiobook Academy. Please don't forget to subscribe for more content like this. See you in next audiobook.